Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Good, the Brand, the Ugly podcast. Today we're talking about social media and why it can be detrimental to your business and personal success if you go all in on only one application. So, Mary, maybe tell us about why we're talking about this today.
Well, as you may or may not know, TikTok's just gone through quite a tumultuous little 24-hour period. From the Australian perspective, I think Friday and Saturday night, we were all anticipating that US residents were about to have TikTok shut down as a part of new US policy. And so we were watching all the US people sort of say goodbye to the app and make their final confessions. And then, Saturday night, it went dark and it was just all of us in the Commonwealth talking about, using centimeters instead of feet. It was very quiet. It was kind of spooky. Albeit it didn't last very long. So Sunday morning we all woke up and all the US people were back online. So it wasn't quite the ban that everyone was anticipating. I think a lot of people anticipated that it would be a little bit longer. So the notification that US residents would have gotten on Saturday said, sorry, TikTok isn't available right now. A law banning TikTok has been enacted in the US. Unfortunately, this means you can't use TikTok for now. We're fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us for a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office. Please stay tuned. And lo and behold, apparently that only takes a couple of hours because the following day they were met with a notification that said, welcome back. Thank you for your patience and support. You can now continue to create, share and discover all the things you like on TikTok. So it was a very odd 24 hours, but the platform did come back. But I think it did get the discussion going a lot about what this means, not just as users for leisure, but also for small businesses that do rely on platforms like TikTok to generate their money.
Exactly. I mean, yes, it was a very short ban, but it's actually quite scary how things can quickly change. I mean, a lot of business owners may think that just because they created a profile on a certain platform, that they own that access to that platform, they own their profile, they own their content. In reality is, they don't own anything. If you're solely going all in on that platform, the platform owns everything you're putting on there. So if you're not looking at other ways to sort of, communicate with your audience outside of that specific platform, it's just going to be a very scary day that platform actually gets turned off. So I think we need to look at, let's look at options of how can small business owners, content creators look at ways that they can sort of diversify their content strategy across other platforms. Anyone got any suggestions?
Particularly as well, like talking about the issues that it is, it's not necessarily just that small businesses and, individual creators are losing access to a platform. They're losing access to, a key marketing channel. A lot of these small businesses that did pop up during COVID, which was when TikTok kind of started to take off. This was, for a lot of them, their main source of marketing. It was a really good organic marketing tool because the algorithm would push it out, not necessarily based on followers or funding or like paid ads. It was all organic and algorithm based. So these businesses that didn't have opportunities to do paid ads and paid advertising were suddenly getting, a lot more recognition following. And if that was suddenly turned off, it was a huge issue. It also pushed a heavier reliance on turning to businesses like Meta and paying for ads, which again, not a lot of businesses can do. So it can get quite scary. For a lot of people.
Especially because you have to, if you're relying on the one platform as well, you're going to have to quickly relearn a completely new platform in a matter of hours or even minutes as well. And sometimes small businesses don't have the capacity to take on that learning at the moment as well. They're really restricting yourself to be on the one platform.
Yeah.
I feel like the TikTok algorithm was so unique to the way that you speak on TikTok as opposed to Instagram and YouTube. It's so different. And so it does require you to just completely overhaul your content strategy, which, like you said, Hayley, not a lot of businesses have the time, that leisure to do.
And I guess for people listening at home, we are based in Australia, and obviously the TikTok ban was purely US based. That doesn't mean that we are completely free from anything ever happening within Australia. There are definitely laws changing at the moment for age restrictions to access Facebook, Meta, all that sort of thing. So it's definitely a time to make sure that you actually have full control over what you're putting out there. And if something goes down on one platform, because it is going to happen, it's happened in the past, and we've got some case studies you can maybe chat about, but making sure that you have other platforms you can sort of rely on, and it's just, you're not going to be vulnerable to current situations.
Also, if your account may get hacked, and once one goes down, sometimes they're all linked, and then it's just a domino effect. So it's also like getting all your ducks in a row and crossing all your T's and dotting your I's and making sure it's all ridgy-dig.
One thing I get a lot of questions about, especially with potential customers inquiring about our services, and I start talking about social media and where they're at with their strategy and what they're doing on content-wise. A lot of them will say, oh, listen, we do a little bit on Facebook and that's basically it. And I don't really have time to look at, yes, we've got Instagram. I'm aware of Twitter or X, but we just don't have time. And I guess you need to really sort of relook at how you can repurpose your current existing content. For example, what we're doing right now is it's a great example of how to sort of repurpose existing content. So we're doing a video, recording this little this conversation as we go. We've got a video content, we've got audio that we can obviously put on a podcast. We can then sort of slice it up and chuck it on Instagram, Reels, TikTok, whatever it may be. So we're looking at sort of diversifying how we approach our content and not being sort of subjective to just do one blog post and then hoping people see that content, but just trying to reach as many people in different ways as possible. So the big thing is really looking at, there's definitely other ways how you can approach your content strategy for sure.
So don't quote me on where I got this stat, but I was reading an article this morning that mentioned that 82% of Gen Z have a social media profile somewhere. So why would you not factor that in? 82% of Gen Z.
Yeah.
They're the buyers too. You want to be where they are. And also it's not just a matter of putting the content that you would have created on TikTok onto YouTube. I don't think that necessarily, because again, the algorithms work differently, but you can do that. YouTube Shorts is there, Instagram Reels. However, I think it's also diversifying the type of content that you create. So if you're just making short form videos, investing in longer form YouTube videos or blog posts or static posts, photography, infographics, that kind of thing. So just switching up. Imagine if your main form of advertising disappeared today. What would you do? If that is a really stressful question for you, then that's something that you need to be thinking about.
There's also,
it's important having a very clear strategy for your business to actually outlines, just in case scenarios, but outlining if I was on Instagram, who are my demographics and what kind of content should I be creating for them as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's no point just creating content for the sake of, here's content I'm going to post on Instagram and going all in on Instagram, just putting content out there. If there's no strategy or no end goal of what you're trying to achieve, you're basically just creating content blindly. And so I do obviously get the other side of the argument where people are like, I just want TikTok. I'm not interested in Facebook. Facebook's dead. That's not our demographic. We're all about just creating content on TikTok. If that's the case, so be it. But make sure you're still building a community outside of TikTok. Make sure there's some sort of website, some sort of mailing list. Because if you're only communicating and getting likes and here's my code, use my code for 15% off and getting some sort of kickback. If that platform goes down, and again, it will happen again, definitely. It's a no-brainer. It will. So if there's no way of capturing that community offline, outside of a platform, whether it's email marketing or a website, a blog post, then you're just waiting for something to sort of destroy your business model. It's only going to happen. Mary, you mentioned earlier about Vine. We were talking about Vine. Let's check that quickly. That's a fantastic case.
It's definitely happened before. This is not the first time that a short form video app has gone dark. I think it's actually a little bit of history repeating itself. So if you're online in 2017, you're probably all over Vine, probably can quote 100 like I can. They shut down really suddenly due to lack of funding because they didn't have any monetization on their app. I don't believe that they were running any ads or anything like that. The reason that Vine shut down is a whole other discussion. But yeah, they did. They went dark. There was very little warning. And suddenly a lot of creators and businesses that had popped up on Vine just suddenly were out of a job and out of their main way of advertising themselves.
Exactly.
But I think we found, and in hindsight, we have the opportunity to see who was successful post-Vine and who wasn't. And it's namely the creators and businesses that did either before the ban or immediately after the ban. Vine wasn't banned, but after the shutdown, they diversified. So there were creators like the Paul brothers, Liza Koshy, David Dobrik, love them or hate them, they immediately flocked to YouTube. They changed their content. They weren't doing short form, they were doing longer form YouTube videos, slightly different content. They took off like crazy. A lot of brands, they found different avenues, and I think those are the ones that really succeeded. And likewise, it was also the brands and the people that had really strong community engagement because people wanted to follow them to wherever they were going. So I think that's another lesson that's kind of a takeaway is if you foster a really engaged community with a good back and forth and content that they like to seek out, not just passively view, they're going to jump ship with you to wherever you go. Yeah, no matter what. So I think, the big takeaway is it's happened twice now, so it's going to happen again.
Yeah,
Watch out.
I think
Get ready.
also if we just speak to business owners quickly, a lot of people think, social media is not for me. My audience is on social media. We get that all the time. But I think business owners need to take that little small business mindset and focus more on they're actually a brand. Whether you're Joe Blogg's Bakery, you actually have to start thinking of yourself as a brand and how is your brand perceived online and offline. So I think maybe let's start talking about some ideas on how people can start creating content on social media and how they can sort of, start distributing on other platforms. I mean, you may not be on LinkedIn, you may not be on all the other platforms, but I would highly recommend at least registering an account because say for example, you do have your business, you may not be on Twitter or X, however you want to refer to it, but at least if you've got an account, that way it secures your brand name within the social media platform, just in case someone starts up a competitor business, or maybe it's a competitor that just to purely spite you, have control over your, what content you're putting out there under your actual business name. So I think there's definitely ways that you can approach content and how you can create that, putting it online and what platform you're actually reaching out to. Not every platform is going to be ideal for what that specific piece of content. For example, what may work on TikTok may not work on LinkedIn. It's two completely different audiences, two different messaging approaches, but there could be ways that you could approach your content on putting on other platforms to see what sticks. Maybe you get better engagement on Facebook rather than Instagram, and you think, okay, well, maybe the community is engaging with this approach rather than Instagram. But end of the day, if you don't try, you'll never know. And if you're only going all in on one platform, you're going to be in this current situation of being quite vulnerable and going dark really with your brand. So
likewise, it's really important to be on these platforms, whether or not you are active on, Twitter or LinkedIn, being aware of the platform and understanding it, hopping on it for a couple of minutes a week and just understanding how people speak, what kind of content performs well, that kind of thing. So in the event that you do decide to start engaging with that platform, or something shuts down and you're kind of forced to diversify a little bit more, at least you aren't learning an algorithm on the fly. You kind of already know. And then you can take the content that was successful, say you have behind the scenes content for your brand that takes off really well, you can adapt that. So with YouTube, you can make it a little bit more longer form. With LinkedIn, you can maybe make it more copy based. Just really understanding how that platform works, because they all speak differently, they all work differently, people engage differently with each one. So it's a bit scary to learn that when you're in a rush to do it.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Forced to in particular.
I think also one last thing I sort of want to mention as well, and it always goes back to what feedback do I receive from inquiries, customers, clients, that a lot of people just don't know what sort of content. I've got no ideas for content, or should I post this at what time and everything. And people get too bogged down on what the content is they should be creating. And I think if they start changing your mindset about, instead of focusing on content and creation, focus more on documentation. If you're it doesn't matter whatever business you're running right now or what industry, if you actually just created content about documenting your day, of about to head into a meeting to talk with these blah 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 blah, and actually just record yourself dealing with your day-to-day small business, stocking shelves or getting orders ready. That's what people want to see. They don't want to see shiny. They want to see real. They want to actually, that's the engagement there. Social media isn't all about high-end production. That's what people go to the cinemas for. It's all about just making sure you can connect with your audience on a real level. And that's the most powerful aspect to social media. People see through the bullshit. They want to actually connect with brands that actually tell it how it is and actually they can relate to. So
it's like, that's the whole point about social media, right? It's supposed to be organic. It's supposed to be in the moment. And particularly thinking of like an instance that happened maybe last year or 2 years ago. There's a famous F1 driver and he misread something in the contract, or like the the actual F1 team misread his contract. And Specsavers actually reposted that on Twitter saying, like, should have gone to Specsavers.
Yeah.
Like that kind of brand like connection is great.
Yes.
It's in the moment.
Off the cuff.
To do with your brand, it's off the cuff. Like that's what social media is supposed to be about. You're not supposed to overthink it. Quick, snappy.
Especially where trends, it's like a 48-hour cycle max. Like after 48 hours, it's gone and then it's cringe. So you've got to jump on it when you can.
Yeah, exactly.
TikTok only came back on Sunday, and I feel like this podcast is already late. Things just move so fast in the grand scheme of things. Yeah.
And that's why it's important to be across all the platforms, because maybe something's trending on TikTok that's not trending on Facebook, and then you can like reshare it on Facebook and spread the news.
Yeah. I think with small businesses in particular, that's why it's so important to really define your brand and figure out your demographic, because what works on TikTok, it might work better for your audience on Pinterest. Like maybe you have a kitchen design company and people are scrolling Pinterest and looking at, new kitchens that they want. Like, so it's really, thinking about your demographic and targeting them.
So
where they hang out.
Yeah.
So we could obviously talk about this for hours. There's so much to cover when it comes to social media scheduling, content, why you should be obviously focusing on a certain platform rather than another platform for your audience. We could go on for hours. So if you are listening to this and you do need a hand with social media, or maybe you've got questions, just reach out, because it is quite overwhelming, especially if social media is not your thing. There's definitely platforms out there and apps that actually do a lot of work for you, whether it's social content scheduling, apps like CapCut to actually create videos for you. You're not reinventing the wheel here. There's free platforms out there that can do a lot of the content and creation for you. You just need advice and direction on how to do it. So, and that's what we're here for. So, cool. So anything else we need to go through on this one?
I think we're good. Hopefully TikTok stays. I did a lot of boots on the ground reporting this weekend in the form of scrolling on TikTok for hours and hours and hours.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully TikTok is here to stay, but it's up in the air at the moment, so don't be relying on that.
Yeah.
Diversify.
Diversify.
100%. Yes. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.